Okay, this is one of my hall recordings out in the hall. Okay, we're going to be looking at portraits in the 19th century today. Um, there's a lot of fun in here, so I think you guys will really enjoy it. Okay, so pastels become very big in the 1700s and the 1800s. Um, and so here we have a portrait of, obviously, a husband and wife. One thing about pastels is they were cheaper. The medium was cheaper, and so you see a pretty good use of pastels throughout the 1700s and even into the 1800s. And to me, it's amazing. The quality of this painting is absolutely amazing. Okay, now we're looking at two separate portraits, obviously. Um, and so it's Madame Joseph Nicholas Pancrace Royer on the left and John Collins of Devizes on the right. And one of the interesting things about pastels, it really gives you some beautiful surfaces, a beautiful just overall aesthetic to the painting. And you'll notice that it seems like she's probably going to the theater or maybe a masquerade ball. I'm not sure. And then on the right, the guy, let's just be honest, it's sort of strange with that rather large goat or sheep, I think it's a goat, next to him with his windswept sort of hair, which is kind of fun. Okay, this is one of my favorites by Sir Joshua Reynolds. It's Mrs. Abington. I like the pose. I think the pose is really interesting. With her, basically looking backwards on a chair. The splat would obviously make it a American Rococo chair, sometimes called the Chippendale chairs. I also like the black armbands, which are pretty cool. I don't know. I've really, to be honest, looking through a lot of different art, I don't think I've ever seen that sort of stark black bracelet anywhere else in art history, so it's kind of rare. This one always makes everybody laugh and chuckle. Me too. I guess sort of it's kind of a pose that you might see more often with women, particularly in an interior scene. Whereas with this one, he's out in nature and sort of being contemplative. He's got his good gloves on, and maybe it's the female gaze. Maybe that's what his the painter and maybe the what we call the sitter, the person that's posing for the painting, wanted to have as the pose. It'd be interesting to know what was the interaction between the artist and the patron. Okay, then we're going to look at, I think this one, I've always really appreciated the one on the left. It's almost as if they're launching out to, I don't know, to, it doesn't look like they're launching out to, come to America or come where, far away on the sea. Maybe it's just a stroll that they're having out into some wilderness, some nature. And then on the right, it's just a fact that we just don't see very many examples of older people in art. And of course, that's you usually see with portraits, so younger individuals. And this is kind of interesting because not only do you have an older couple, but you also have who might imagine being well, does it say here at all? Let's see. No, it doesn't say. Oh, okay, it's the artist's parents. Oh, no wonder. Okay, so it's the artist's parents and the artist's children. That makes sense. That makes total sense. Okay, so he's painting the grandparents with the grandchildren. Now, this is a fun one because it's a little unclear who is the husband and who is the brother-in-law. So in this one, um, so yeah, and I honestly can't remember. So I mean, you can come up with your own theories. I think is a good idea, right? As far as the color choice, the palette, it would seem as though the front two are more sort of matching, as opposed to the other guy in the background with his black suit. But then again, he's got his arm around the woman, but then she's got her hands on the other guy's shoulders. All right, well, I guess it's up for interpretation, as always, which is cool. I love ambiguity. I love it when it's a little bit different. Okay, now we're going to look at something that has just been recently talked about, actually. And that is two female artists painting two ambassadors to France from other countries. And so on the left is Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun, and we talked about her in class, I think. I'm pretty sure. The court painter to Marie Antoinette. And here she is painting somebody from Islamic lands, which is pretty cool. And then on the right is another woman painter painting a portrait of the ambassador from Persia. The other one, oh, did I get that wrong? Hold on a second. Yeah, okay, Manoj Khan, ambassador from India, is on the left, and then is the portrait of Asghar Khan, ambassador from Persia, on the left. Oh, I think I screwed that up. Okay, sorry. I think it's Vigée-Lebrun on the right with the ambassador from India, and I think it's the portrait of Asghar Khan from Persia on the left. Okay, so Lebrun actually did the one on the right. Okay, well, with recordings you get mistakes, and that's just how it goes. All right, now let's look at Goya. So sometimes we get to realism before this lecture, and sometimes we don't. Goya, of course, is a leading artist, a leading Spanish artist of the Enlightenment era. He's the one that, he was in his art saying that Napoleon's reign, his control over Spain was not great for Spaniards, but this is a totally different sort of thing going on. This is a portrait. It has nothing to do with politics, but it shows actually a woman artist, Marquesa de Villafranca, sorry for the mispronunciation, painting her husband. That is just so rare that you see. I mean, obviously we see some women artists, especially in the 1800s and some in the 1700s, but with a painting next to them is kind of unusual, in my humble opinion. Okay, and then the guy on the right is a sculptor, obviously, and it's a fellow artist who is sculpting him. Okay, these two are kind of new to me and the lecture, and I can't remember when I started this lecture, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it's kind of nice to get outside of France and some other popular countries during this time period, and I believe the guy on the left is from Denmark. His name is Christian Kobe, and that's a self-portrait, and then on the right is, let's see, on the right, what do we got? Yeah, so it's not a self-portrait, which you might think right away, but it's not. It's a young artist examining a sketch in a mirror. So it's another friend artist actually doing a portrait of somebody that he's familiar with, maybe makes art with. Okay, now let's look at leaders of men. That's kind of a fun little category. So on the left is our friend Jacques-Louis David, who we would have already talked about or not talked about, given the timing of this lecture. So David, of course, was one of the most highly skilled artists of the 19th century. And this is something kind of a little unusual. I haven't seen very many David portraits of military men standing, with sort of a background. So it's a little bit different. And then a very sort of romanticized version of a leader on the right, kind of at it's a battle scene basically with unnatural light coming through, and a very sort of noble soldier on the right. Okay, then let's talk about families. That's always fun. With this one, not really too much to say, I guess, but usually you see the heir to the family's fortune, the son in the middle, with on-looking sort of parents. In this case, I'm pretty sure that's the young girl is the oldest, or maybe the first child, and it's a beautiful painting. I think what comes out are the silk dresses of the young girl and her mother, and then the husband kind of is looking on a little bit there, which is a little bit of a different pose. This one is a little new to me as well. I really enjoy it. It's the Eltz family, and there's a lot of them. Count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 children? I think so. I think I got it right. You usually don't see them out in nature like that, which is kind of odd. It's almost as if it was, some sort of fake painting in the background. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun family. Okay, the next two are also ones that I've picked out recently. I could imagine the young woman on the left going to the arts high school. I don't know why. I like the colors a lot. I also like the hair, and just the overall floral look is quite beautiful. And then sort of kind of the opposite is a little bit more subdued. It'd be interesting to know what her family crest is all about in the upper right-hand corner. So two different women, but you can imagine they're not too far off as far as the dates of the actual works, because the actual dress style is fairly similar with the bare shoulders, but I think, which is great about art history, obviously the palette, the color choices have really made it look different for sure. Okay, so no wonder I put those two in there to do a comparison. All right, now we're headed into Angra, or Ang. I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, and maybe if somebody's listening to this recording that's not one of my students might be horrified by my pronunciation, but we're going to go with it. So he is one of the most talented portrait painters in all of art history. I have been doing some sketching on the side a little bit, just as a kind of a hobby, and I have a book of 44 drawing portraits done by him. And what I like to do is take details from various different drawn portraits. I haven't at this point started to draw the whole portrait. It's intimidating. I mean, his ability with just his clear line is just amazing. So here's a little story. So David Hockney, the very famous pop artist, went to a show of Angra's work, and he came away with it believing that Angra was using a optical device called a camera lucida. And a camera lucida basically, the camera lucida is, okay, you got sort of a piece of glass, and then it's held by a apparatus, and then the glass points to the person, and then the reflection of the person comes down onto the piece of paper. Now, we don't have any actual evidence that Angra was using a camera lucida. All the people that he painted were incredibly wealthy individuals who would have written letters to friends, and we have no letters with people saying, "Well, it's just the portrait sketch was just done of me by this famous artist Angra, and you know what? He used a camera lucida." There's no letter like that at all. Also, he probably would have put it into his last will and testament. Nope, nothing there. So my take on that is that David Hockney just couldn't get his head around the fact that some of these 19th century artists were better at drawing than he has been, or he's still alive. So yeah, that's my take on it. I also kind of saw that exhibition, actually. It was a long time ago in London in the early aughts. Okay, so I really love this painting a lot because one of my former students, her name was Hannah, dressed up like this woman. I don't know if she actually made the dress. I don't think she did. It's the I know for you guys and for me, the whole fur thing is something that was attractive to aristocrats and rich people. So there you have it. And she's wearing, of course, a empire dress, which has the waistline that comes up to the breasts. Very different from the Rococo era. And that's kind of one of the themes in the latter part of this lecture, is that, as we've talked about before, when the culture changes, the fashion changes, the art changes. And so if the old regime was something that you were against, it makes sense that you would no longer wear a Rococo dress with incredible architecture underneath and the corset and all that. So it's a reaction, the empire dress is a reaction to the old regime. Now, he also does these paintings of these dashing men of the early 1800s. It'd be good to note, too, that this is the time of Jane Austen. Maybe he was wait a minute, he's French. So, yeah, okay, so maybe he has a cousin in England that Jane Austen's main characters would enjoy. But yeah, and what's kind of interesting about this is the cravat, I think is how you say it, which becomes a big deal in this time period. The equivalent, of course, would be today maybe a winter scarf, or maybe not, or the quarter zip, maybe, probably not. But anyway, so here he is, and I guess he was involved in, looks like some war, and has medals. This guy has always been kind of interesting to me. I guess it's his pose. It's probably also just how his eyes, move to our right. And then the curious, whatever's down below there. Maybe it's also just the dark clothing. I don't know what it is, but it seems a very interesting portrait for sure. Okay, this one's got a great, interesting story. So she was in the Napoleonic administration, I believe in Italy, and she had her portrait done by, of course, Ingres. And the clear mole that she has on the left, when she died, her relatives put paint over the mole, the clear mole, and then when art conservators a number of years ago were cleaning the painting, they realized that the paint over the clear mole was not original, and so they took it off, and now it's how she wanted to be seen. And this gets into all sorts of discussions of why is it that we don't see acne or moles or disfigurement in portraits throughout the history of art. And of course, it just comes down to people wanting to be seen as perfect, right? Or, yeah, that's why you would sort of have that. Okay, so that's kind of fun. Oh, also, I want to mention that his mom was a milliner, and so he was familiar with fashion in a pretty extensive way, and oftentimes with his portraits, he'll have some evidence of an interest in fashion, whether or not it's the design of the cloak or the design of the velvet dress. Yeah, he really knows how to create clothing for his sitters. Okay, so I had mentioned a little bit before about some of his portrait sketches that I really enjoy, and here's two examples. And I think we're still good. Let me go back a second. No, I can't go back, sorry. Okay, yeah, so here's two examples. One of the things you'll notice is he spends, at least on the right, he spends a lot of time with the details of the face, and then there's just a sort of a sense of the clothing. It's not fully realized, and that's one of the kind of things that I like about some of his portrait sketches. And there's a lot of them out there in museums. Okay, now we're going to look at some interesting portraits that have some issues with anatomy. And so I want you to sort of rank these as far as how much the anatomy is off. And this is the first one. And I think we can agree that the right arm is unnaturally long. These are actually studies for the actual painting. So that's kind of fun to see how he developed the sleeves and the just the orientation of the body on the right. Okay, this is another one where the right arm is very, very long. And again, you can see all the patterns and designs that he would know possibly from his mother's job, which is kind of fun. And this is Madame Leblanc. A lot of students talk about the unnatural breasts, and it seems as though the gloved hand is a little bit off as well, as we see here. And then this one's kind of fun. This one actually is something that I've seen in a TV series recently. I'm forgetting the name of it, but yeah, so the right arm looks a little unnatural for sure. So that's what's going on with that one. Okay, so we looked at 4. You guys can determine which one do you think is off the most and which one is just a little bit off as far as unnatural body parts. Okay, now we're looking at who are we looking at here? Oh, hold on. I had one more. Yeah. Okay, so that last one was another one within the contest, but I think that would have made 5. So just skip that one. Um, we'll look at it later, maybe. Okay, this one's in Chicago at the Chicago Art Institute. Here's the deal. I think he does very nicely with his portraits of men. There doesn't seem to be any sort of anatomy issues. And so, yeah, very elegant man, looking his best. This one has an interesting story. So there was a sculpture in the background that was political and linked him to some politics that later he would have, I guess, been criticized for. So either Angwer or somebody else came back in and painted over the sculpture on his right, our left. This is one that I want to show you guys because it it ends with this painting here, right? And then, I was going to show you a development. I'll go back to it, hopefully. So that's a very famous portrait of an older man there. And then this is one of his friends I think it was Rome, who has a very interesting sort of look to the side. Okay, yes. And so this is kind of fun. So this person was first painted on the left. And she's standing, and he did not finish the portrait. And then 5 years later, he paints her again, and she did not own that dress. Actually, she gave him the pattern to the dress, and he painted basically the pattern of the dress onto her. And then he went back and finished the painting on the left after 5 years. So unfinished, new painting, then finished the one on the left. Okay, here's some more portraits, sketches of men this time, which is kind of fun. And then this is Paganini, of course, a very, very famous composer of that time. So great ones. Okay, now I'm going to do some additions. We're going to look at Scandinavian female artists in Paris, and this is a self-portrait by Ellen Danielson Gambogi, and I love how she's sitting down on the studio floor. I love how she's looking at us, and it just seems kind of like a natural pose inside her studio. All right, here's another one. This is Hannah Pauly's The Artist Vinnie Soldan. Brofelt, and this is from Sweden, so this is another Scandinavian artist. Remember that painting and the schools of art were opening up to women in the latter half of the 19th century, which is great. All right, this is another self-portrait looking very interestingly at us. And then I really like this one. I picked this out. This is one by the first artist that we were looking at. This is Girl and Kittens in Summer Landscape. How can you not say, "Ah, that's cute," and quite beautiful. Okay, and then leading up to modernism, we have Gustave Courbet with one of his friends and his friend's children, which is pretty awesome. It's kind of a little bit of a different thing for Courbet, I would say. And then here we've got Degas, sort of a genre scene, a man out with his children and his dog, and the yellow is really dominant there. And so that's something that you don't usually see. And remember, with Impressionism, or I guess we haven't gotten to Impressionism yet, but you're going to have different color choices that are not necessarily natural. And then we've got some Mary Cassatt, a woman in a garden. I love the pose, overall pose in this one. And then here we have Morisot, two sisters. And then do you remember we talked about Cecilia Beaux? So she's one of those late 19th century American painters. Here she is with a mother and child. And then something quite radically different. Here is Paula Modersohn Becker nursing money in front of a birch forest. Lots of different things going on here. A simplification of the figure. You usually don't see breastfeeding that much in paintings in the 19th century. So we have a real leap here between Cecilia Beaux, fairly straightforward Renaissance sort of training, painting on the left, and then a modern one on the right. And then for some reason, there's an artist who likes to paint women in front of doors, and this is her, Fernand Kampf. Oh, I think this is actually a man painting his sister next to the door. I was off on that one a little bit. And then here's our last one, Toulouse-Lautrec. I'm a huge fan these days, much more of a fan than I used to be, that's for sure. And he's definitely a modernist. And it's kind of fun to end on that note.